My fiance's lover stole my grandmother's watch. When I tried to get it back, her lover, Leo, smashed it, and she, Clara, slapped me across the face for daring to touch him. Despite all of that, I married her. Our wedding took place on my 20th birthday, a union orchestrated because I had been chosen as the future son-in-law of the powerful Sterling family. But I always knew her heart wasn't with me. She could never forget the bold, reckless boy who cut class, raced cars, and fought for her attention. 2 years later, we divorced. Clara, finally free and in control of her family's power, was able to marry the man she truly loved. 3 years after that, I returned to the city. At a lavish party I was hosting, I saw her again, and for a moment I caught a look of pure amazement in her eyes. It was as if she wanted to say, "Adrian, after all this time, you're the one I should have been with." By then, however, it was far too late. I was already remarried, to a woman whose family was even more influential than the Sterlings had ever been. Clara never seemed to understand that feelings don't wait for you to be ready, that a missed opportunity is gone forever. And she certainly never knew just how much self-control it took for me not to strike back the moment she slapped me, just so I could wait for the right time to return the favor 1,000 times over. The first major jewelry show I organized upon my return was held at the Delacroix family's private estate, a castle-like mansion rarely opened to outsiders. Old acquaintances and prominent figures from prestigious families came to show their support. To my surprise, Clara showed up too. A small murmur went through the grand hall as she entered. It was common knowledge that I had once been her husband. She wore a dark gray dress, and around her neck was a piece of jewelry I had once designed for her. Instantly, all eyes turned to me, curious, gossiping, and scrutinizing. After all, when Clara had chosen to marry Leo, she had no problem crushing me completely. She had forcibly broken our engagement, canceled all business cooperation with my family, and effectively exiled me from the city for 3 years. I had to endure the curses and disappointment of my own parents, leaving the country with nothing but a suitcase and a sense of profound dejection. Now, I was back with a new identity, personally hosting a magnificent jewelry show titled Crown Elysium. Across the bustling crowd, my eyes met hers. Clara's features were as elegant as ever, her lips pressed together in a thin line. Her eyes, which I remembered as being full of fire and defiance, were now as deep and still as an icy pond, though something stirred beneath the surface. She looked completely different from the headstrong girl I once knew. She made her way through the guests and stopped in front of me. "Adrian," she said, her voice steady. "The show's theme is quite impressive. Spanning a century to interpret the history of crowns, it beautifully showcases the evolution of power and aesthetics." My wife, Isabella, stood beside me, a picture of amusement. She raised her wine glass. "Adrian is a gifted man. Has Clara only just realized that now?" She smiled sweetly. "Tonight's orders are in the millions, all because of his talent. The Delacroix estate is rarely opened to anyone, yet they gave Adrian free rein." I lightly clinked my champagne flute against hers. "I'm grateful for everyone's cooperation. It's much appreciated." Clara looked at me, a deep and unreadable expression in her eyes. She tried for a joking tone. "I went through a lot of trouble to get an invitation. Are you still holding a grudge?" "Holding a grudge against you would be petty, wouldn't it?" I replied, and I saw her expression falter. 10 years ago, Clara was the eldest daughter of the Sterling family, the absolute center of everyone's world. My own family was merely a minor branch, dependent on her family's influence. I was born with a photographic memory and showed signs of high intelligence from a young age, which led to me being chosen as her prospective husband. Though I was 2 years younger, I skipped 2 grades to become her classmate. That wasn't even the peak of my abilities, but a single, casual remark from Mrs. Sterling had tied my future to her daughters. My parents reminded me constantly, Adrian, my mother would say, in our world, being smart isn't the most important thing. Recognizing an opportunity is. For the sake of that opportunity, my mother was willing to ignore my father's illegitimate child, as long as my brother and I could secure our future through the Sterlings. She pushed me to stay close to Clara, to never disobey her, believing it was the only way for us to gain a foothold in their business empire. But I understood early on that what is gained by groveling can be taken away just as easily. I never looked for security in other people. I knew I had to grow my own strength, quietly in the shadows, so that one day I could stand in the light on my own terms. My first real challenge appeared in our sophomore year. Leo wasn't the first boy to pursue Clara, but he was the first who dared to openly defy her. He came from the slums, having gotten into our elite school by a stroke of luck after saving the principal's daughter from a group of thugs. The first time he walked into our classroom, he radiated a kind of untamed freedom. He had a silver snake chain around his neck, and a worn jacket was tied casually around his waist. He leaned against the doorframe, blew a large pink bubble with his gum, and let it pop loudly. A girl in front of him flinched. He just scoffed, showing no sign of being intimidated by his new, wealthy surroundings. Clara, who sat in front of me, let out a soft, intrigued hum. Leo tossed his patched-up backpack onto the desk next to her. "Yo, a free seat," he said, oblivious to the sudden silence that had fallen over the room. Everyone knew that Clara didn't like sitting with anyone, not even me. The seat next to her was always kept empty, but on that day, she didn't object to Leo. From that moment, I realized that some places, just like some hearts, are reserved for certain people. Leo's grades were terrible, and he was a known partier, while Clara was academically brilliant. But there is a fundamental difference between the old money and the newly rich. Clara disliked attending lectures, but her family hired PhD graduates from overseas to tutor her personally. She was surrounded by experts who made learning feel like a game. She absorbed knowledge effortlessly, while Leo struggled. Seeing her effortlessly score in the top 10 while seemingly sleeping through class, Leo once slammed his hand on his desk. "It's all a trick. You pretend to sleep," he accused. "I dare you to a real competition." Clara lazily opened her eyes. "Bet on what?" "A car race," he said. "If I lose, I'll run 3 laps around the playground naked." He then shot a challenging look at me. Everyone in school knew I was her designated future husband, and from the first day, Leo had shown a visceral dislike for me. While I was in another room reciting French grammar, I heard the sound of a locker door being kicked shut. He was on the phone, his voice loud and bitter. "Why does Adrian get to live in a mansion from birth while I have to give up my room to my cousin and sleep on the couch when I go home?" Clara never gave me a single glance, acting as if his words weren't a direct and public humiliation for me. She treated my presence as if I were a pretty accessory, an asset to show off, not a person. She turned back to Leo, twirling a pen gracefully. "And what if you win?" she asked. A lively, mischievous smile spread across Leo's face. "Spend a night with me." After the bet, Clara took Leo camping on a mountain for the entire night. As for me, I was punished by my father, forced to kneel before our ancestral tablets. "Being noticed by the Sterlings is a blessing for this family," he said, his voice full of self-righteous anger. "If you can't even hold on to one woman, what use are you?" I was locked in a dark storage room for 7 days. It was then I understood that the dirtiest parts of a powerful family are always hidden from view. A week later, Clara simply informed my family that I should be allowed to return to school, and my father, fawning and obedient, immediately agreed. I realized then that she was the one pulling the strings. The reason for her intervention was simple. Leo had mocked me. saying I was so obedient that if I were locked up, I wouldn't even dare to rebel. When I returned to school, I saw him drinking organic milk that Clara had opened for him, playing with a pendant of exquisite quality. It was my watch. A furious heat washed over me, and I violently searched through my desk drawer. He wanted to take everything from me. To protect the watch my grandmother had left me, her last gift before she died. I had built a secret compartment for it in my bag. "Give it back," I said, my voice low. "Give what back?" he sneered. "Give it back now," I warned, "and I'll pretend this never happened. If the police get involved, it will be too late." Leo just laughed. "Go ahead and call them. I've never taken anything from you." Just then, Clara walked in. Leo immediately took her arm. "Just because I'm not from your world, they're accusing me of stealing. They think you gave me this watch because I took it." Clara pulled Leo closer, shielding him. "Adrian, it was a gift. I gave the watch to Leo." "Impossible," I said, my voice turning cold. "My grandmother personally commissioned that for me. Say it again and return it." Leo's smile vanished. As he moved, he accidentally dropped the watch, and it shattered on the floor. A blind rage boiled up inside me. I lunged forward and grabbed his collar, but before my fist could connect, Clara forcibly grabbed my wrist. I refused to back down. Perhaps she found his troublemaking exciting, a thrill she couldn't get from her structured life. Or maybe she was simply annoyed by my uncharacteristic defiance. Then came the slap. Her hand connected hard with my face, the force throwing me off balance. I stumbled backward, crashed into a chair, and fell to the ground. Looking up, I saw a flicker of shock in her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by resolve. Beside her, Leo wore a triumphant, malicious smile. Clara never apologized. In fact, she grew even closer to Leo after that day, indulging his reckless driving, his truancy, and his fights. 2 years after we were forced to marry, she insisted on a divorce, and within 3 years, she seemed like a different person. Back at the jewelry show, I watched as Leo walked in, irritation written all over Clara's face. He waved a watch in the air. "Look, Clara, this is the ring you bought me when we got married. It's getting a bit old. I heard you spent $30 million on some jewelry here tonight, so I came to see if anything caught my eye." He stared at me with a challenging gaze. I smirked. "I'm sorry, all of my pieces are premium high jewelry. $30 million might get you an entry-level item." Leo's face instantly darkened. Before he could say anything, Clara subtly pulled her arm away from his grasp. "Tone it down," she said flatly. "Don't cause trouble." Her eyes darted between my detached expression and her husband's angry one. Perhaps growing up on the streets meant that years of elite grooming couldn't teach Leo any real restraint. He downed 3 glasses of wine in quick succession, his anger simmering. "Clara, don't think I don't know," he slurred. "We canceled important meetings just to rush back here. Ever since your ex-husband started making a name for himself a year ago, you've been paying way too much attention to his activities." Before he could finish, he staggered and knocked over the entire champagne tower. The sound of dozens of expensive crystal glasses shattering echoed through the hall. A butler appeared instantly, his face a mask of polite disapproval. "Sir," he said respectfully, "the glasses you have broken are a treasured collection of my lady." The room buzzed. Everyone knew about the rise of the Delacroix family and its current head, my wife, Isabella. She wielded immense influence, and offending her was a grave mistake. Amid the gasps, I heard Clara grit her teeth. "Leo, don't disgrace me again." She personally apologized to the butler, promising to compensate for the damage, a rare display of humility from her. An old associate, Marcus, leaned in. "Divorcing her was the right choice," he murmured. After Mrs. Sterling's illness forced her to transfer power to her daughter, the Sterling family began to decline rapidly. I had heard the stories. Clara was raised on praise, making her stubborn and headstrong. Marrying me had been her greatest compromise. Her own father had sacrificed himself for his first love. And within 2 years of our marriage, I had used the manners and skills I'd learned to navigate high society, balancing family affairs and becoming known as the Sterling's dutiful and composed supporting figure. But she threw it all away for Leo. I remembered her bitter words on our wedding day. "Adrian, if this is what you want, then just take it." Afterward, she treated me with cold indifference. At the time, Leo couldn't even earn a high school diploma. He excelled at sports, however, and Clara adored the wild freedom she saw in him on horseback, something she, raised in luxury, had never truly experienced. "Adrian," she once told me, "you were born in opulence, but you were shackled by rules. You're utterly boring. Leo has nothing, but he's like a wildfire, vibrant and unrestrained. I genuinely love him, enough to break every rule for him." How ridiculous. That true love didn't even last 7 years. Less than a month before the jewelry show, Clara had tried to contact me several times, but I declined to meet. I knew her motives were a mix of business and personal feelings. 4 years ago, I had helped an elderly woman restore a jade pendant that belonged to her late husband. The woman's son, seeing my company was looking to expand into the South American market, proactively offered us a partnership. Recently, however, his company had unilaterally ended that partnership and reclaimed port operations, a devastating blow to the Sterling's business ambitions. Clara hoped I could mediate. "Adrian," she had said over the phone, "you can't possibly think that buying $30 million worth of jewelry gives you the upper hand over me, do you?" I sneered. "What do you want, Clara?" "Your mother is gravely ill," she said, her voice softening. "You wouldn't want her to be worried about these trivial matters, would you? I was wrong before. I shouldn't have embarrassed you for Leo's sake. But if you all hadn't gone too far, I wouldn't have made sure your family went bankrupt." It took me a moment to understand what she meant. 3 years ago, when my parents discovered Clara's affair with Leo, they had plotted to kidnap him and nearly burned him alive in a warehouse. Clara herself had rescued him, and the image of the wealthy heiress passionately kissing the rebellious horse trainer was splashed across every newspaper. Because of that, she had completely turned on me, filing for divorce and ending all our business partnerships. I was recently invited to our high school reunion. The class president who organized it looked at me apologetically. "Adrian, Clara never used to attend these things. I'm not sure why she decided to come this time. She even offered to cover all the costs." At the reunion, Clara was surprisingly attentive. "Adrian, let me peel that shrimp for you." I frowned slightly. She had once vowed to only ever peel shrimp for Leo. I gently moved the bowl away. "Sorry, I'm not a fan of shrimp." "But your mother said you love seafood just like me," she insisted. The class president interjected. "I remember Adrian having a severe allergic reaction to seafood once. He needed medication." Clara looked embarrassed. "Why didn't you ever say so?" "Mrs. Sterling didn't like family members showing any obvious weaknesses," I replied nonchalantly. "Besides, you eventually found someone who loved seafood, so your efforts weren't wasted." Her face flushed, but she quickly masked it with a lazy smile. "During the party, someone mentioned that the luxury jewelry brand that had hosted the recent show belonged to me." Clara scoffed. "Based on what I know of you, Adrian, that's impossible. Don't get mixed up in something illegal for money." It took me a moment to understand her. When we divorced, the Sterlings had given me a settlement of $1 million. I was essentially cast out with nothing. She stated confidently, "Your parents' company went bankrupt. There's no way you could have built a $1 billion luxury brand in just 3 years. She then smirked. I was blind not to see that you were the one for me all along. Come back, Adrian. You'll be the Sterling's favorite again, just like before. Why on earth would she believe I would help her after everything? Because I was the son-in-law they had molded? Or because she assumed I would always be the compliant boy she knew? Perhaps that was true in the past. Before the Sterlings chose me, my life was comfortable, but suffocating. My mother only cared for my brother and blamed me for my father's affairs, often slapping me for no reason. When I refused to marry Clara, my father slapped me too. He saw me as nothing more than a bargaining chip. When I first met the free-spirited Clara, I had hoped my destiny wouldn't be so cruel, until I overheard her calling me a smart little cat, something to be fattened up before she used me in her own battles against her mother. She played with my obedience just like everyone else. My compliance was a mask. To her, I had never defied her, so a little coaxing should have been enough to make me melt. But in the next second, I lifted my arm and slapped her hard across the face. "Adrian, how dare you hit me!" she shrieked. I had waited a very long time for that moment, and she would soon understand that it was just the beginning. The commotion drew people out of the private dining room. The class president rushed over. "Adrian, are you all right?" Someone noticed the red mark on Clara's cheek and gasped. Clara pressed her tongue against her cheek. Her eyes narrowed with a dangerous anger. "You've got quite the temper after a few years abroad, Adrian." "Not as much of a temper as you, who can slap an old acquaintance and still have the nerve to demand things from him," I retorted. The class president, trying to defuse the situation, chuckled nervously. "Clara was wrong before. Joseph is doing so well for himself now. Maybe we can just let bygones be bygones." Let bygones be bygones? I was disgraced, my family ruined, my future destroyed. What if my plans had failed? Where would I be now? "You've changed," Clara admitted, a strange look in her eyes. "More rebellious. But I like it. Today, in front of everyone, I'm making 2 announcements. First, I'm getting a divorce. Second, I'm setting my sights on you again." The room erupted in whispers. I couldn't help but let out a short, humorless laugh as I held up my left hand, showing them the simple wedding band on my finger. "Too late." The class president congratulated me sincerely. "Adrian, you're remarried. Congratulations." "You're remarried? I don't believe it," Clara's voice called out from behind me, thick with disbelief. I cast her one last cold glance before turning to leave. A black Rolls-Royce was waiting at the hotel entrance. The window rolled down, revealing a woman in the shadows. Her sharp profile was like carved jade, and her eyes, usually veiled in a cool mist, warmed with a gentle smile when they met mine. "Hey, girlfriend," I said, swinging open the car door. "I thought you weren't back for another week." A few seconds of silence passed before Isabella let out a soft laugh, her voice elegant and warm. "I missed you," she whispered. She raised the partition between us and the driver and kissed me, a deep, possessive kiss that seemed to vent a jealousy I hadn't realized was there. When she pulled away, I pretended to be upset. "You're drunk," I mumbled. Isabella wrapped her arms around me, her warm breath tickling my neck. "Did you miss me?" she asked. She was always so composed. It was the first time I'd seen such intense emotion in her eyes. I took her hand. "I have to confess," I said. "I hurt someone today." She frowned, turning my hand over to inspect it carefully. "Does it hurt?" "Nah," I said. "I got my revenge. Why would it hurt?" She laughed softly. "Next time, let the bodyguards handle things like that. What am I going to do with you? When I first met you, you were such a sly little fox." We had known each other for 7 years. We met during a major high school academic competition where we tied for first place. We resonated with each other immediately. She was amazed by my talent at such a young age, and I admired her resilience. Back then, she wasn't a wealthy heiress. She was a girl being oppressed by her father's second wife after he had married into the powerful Delacroix family and then fallen on hard times. I sensed she had a chance to return to power and quietly supported her. I told her something I had noticed with my photographic memory. Her so-called half-sister didn't look like her father at all. She looked like someone else, her stepmother's foster brother. Isabella was smart. With that one clue, the pieces fell into place. While she studied abroad, I became the Sterling's son-in-law, quietly funneling money from my stock trading investments to help her build her own power base. With her immense talent for business, she conquered the European market. She then used her newfound strength to order a DNA test, which she had delivered to the head of the Delacroix family. Her stepmother's world came crashing down. Her family was no longer powerful, and on his sickbed, the Delacroix patriarch decreed a peaceful divorce, but she was to leave with none of the family's assets. He also insisted that Isabella be welcomed back into the family. Now she had officially returned to take over the entire Delacroix empire. "Adrian," she said softly in the car, "I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough back then. I'm sorry you had to endure so much." "Everyone faces hardships," I replied. "At least now we have a bright future ahead of us." When I saw Clara again, it was at the Delacroix family's banquet. Leo was there too, trying to hide the dark circles under his eyes. Word of Clara's announcement at the reunion had reached him, and he had tried to cause trouble at my company, but couldn't even get past the front door. He hadn't matured at all. He blocked my path at the banquet, looking smug. "Adrian, it's been 3 years since your divorce. Can't you just let her go?" I swirled the red wine in my glass. "Leo, you weren't on the guest list. How did you get in?" He paled, but tried to maintain his composure. He was draped in expensive, flashy clothes. "I'm here with my wife. You're the one who is uninvited to Isabella's party." He then gestured to his bodyguard, who stepped forward and, to the shock of the entire room, slapped me. Clara rushed over as Leo wailed, "Someone hit me! Get them back!" She turned to me. "Adrian, hitting someone in public isn't right. Apologize to Leo and we can pretend this never happened. After all, us being seen like this doesn't look good for the Sterling family." I chuckled. "Clara, my bodyguard earns $1 million a year. He doesn't hit people for no reason. Why don't you ask him what your husband did?" The bodyguard played a video on his phone. It clearly showed Leo secretly spiking my drink and having a waiter bring it to me. "No," Leo stammered. "I just added some vitamins." Clara stood in front of my bodyguard, looking at me pleadingly. "Adrian, give us a break. Leo is sick. That's why he's been acting so strange lately." "He's not my problem," I said flatly, "and being sick is not an excuse." Leo, feeling emboldened, sneered at me. "I'm with Clara now. You'll never get back into the Sterling family." I calmly took a bottle of wine from a nearby table and poured it over his head. "And where do you get the nerve to mess with me?" His expensive suit was soaked. He staggered back. "I'm sick. How dare you cause trouble at the Delacroix's home?" I laughed coldly. "Because I am the founder of Crown Elysium. I am Isabella's husband, and the companies I own are worth billions." A dead silence fell over the room. Clara stared at me, her face a mask of disbelief. "How can your wife be Isabella? Why would she pick up my leftovers?" This time, before my guard could act, I grabbed her by the collar and slapped her again, hard. Just then, Isabella came down from the second floor. She wrapped an arm around my waist. "Honey, who upset you?" she asked softly. Someone quickly filled her in. Isabella took my hand and gently blew on it. "I told you to leave the rough stuff to the guards," she chided gently, her public display of affection a stark contrast to her icy reputation. Clara was at a loss for words. She had come hoping to secure a partnership with the Delacroix family, never imagining this. Isabella's voice turned frosty. Clara, 3 years ago, I acquired the company you wanted. 2 years ago, you were pursuing a deal in South America. I found financial irregularities in your company and made sure they backed out. The Sterling family is involved in money laundering and multiple counts of commercial fraud. Our lawyers are gathering the evidence right now. She checked her watch. You should take a last deep breath of free air. The authorities are on their way. As the sound of sirens grew closer, Clara's eyes widened in terror. She looked at me. Adrian, you worked in our company for 2 years. Was it all to uncover our secrets? That's right. You hate me that much? You were so bent on destroying my family? Indeed. Her eyes bulged with rage. My mother treated you well. The divorce was harsh, but your family deserved what they got. Who told them to kidnap Leo? I tossed a folder of documents at her feet. Use your brain, Clara. Leo staged the whole thing, and you fell for it. It took her a long time to process that the kidnapping was a ploy he used to turn her against me. Knowing this, I had let it happen. My own parents wanted to force me to my knees, but I would never let them control me again. Post-divorce, I escaped with Isabella, expanding our businesses abroad. With my design talent and her investment genius, we strove to become the masters of our own destinies. Clara was taken in for questioning. A few days later, Mrs. Sterling came to see me. A major car accident 3 years ago had left her paralyzed from the waist down. Adrian, she said, you have always been exceptional. Please, for the sake of the kindness we once showed you, get Clara out of this. No, I replied coldly. I was never a pampered prince. I was a sacrifice. I learned to survive by mastering the art of chaos. Your kindness came with chains. Her gaze turned icy. Without the Sterlings, you would be nothing. You owe me gratitude. Times have changed, Mrs. Sterling, I said. You clipped my wings, burned my letters of recommendation, and locked me in a basement. You thought you owned me. I paused, then delivered the final blow. I have a gift for you. I handed her another file. Your accident wasn't an accident. It was caused by Leo's father, and 6 months ago Clara found out the truth but was too afraid to tell you. Mrs. Sterling's face filled with a terrifying rage. Her own daughter, for whom she had fought so hard, had betrayed her. Blinded by the need for revenge, she used the evidence I provided to take Leo's family to court. When Leo came to me, looking beaten and worn, he begged me to help get his family and Clara out of jail. Why should I asked. You cared for her for years, he pleaded. How can you just let her rot in prison? I interrupted him coldly. Leo, I never liked Clara, not once. He stared at me, bewildered. But you always went along with her. To deceive the Sterlings, you have to give a little, I explained. The real mastermind. It was you all along, he mumbled. Unable to sway me, he drew a knife, but my bodyguards acted swiftly. He tumbled down a flight of stairs, leaving a trail of blood. By the time he reached the hospital, he had lost a kidney. Mrs. Sterling didn't survive the winter. My own parents tried to reconnect, but I refused to see them. They retreated to the countryside with my brother, the perfect heir they had always wanted, who was now causing them constant trouble. On the day of my grand wedding to Isabella, news came that Clara had been diagnosed with stomach cancer and had attempted to take her own life in prison. She sent me a long, rambling letter full of apologies and pleas for forgiveness. I didn't bother to read it. I had it forwarded to Leo. A dogfight between them was far more entertaining, but not worth my time. That evening, Isabella finally looked up from her work. I swirled the amber liquid in my glass, about to tease her for being a workaholic, when she leaned over and gently brushed the froth from my lips. Later, we walked barefoot on the damp sand as fireworks lit up the night sky. She wrapped her arms around me from behind, her warm breath tickling my ear. "Now I get it," she whispered. "The best business venture is sharing moments like this with you. A healthy love shows you that all the sadness of your childhood was just a prelude. The people who are meant to endure are meant to walk the same path. And I am genuinely, profoundly relieved that the person I found at the end of my path was her."